Amidst high or record high housing costs across the country, the vast majority of recent home buyers have a lot of remorse over the fact that they decided to buy a house, probably because they likely purchased their home at the very top of the market. So according to a recent poll, as the US housing market cools, feverish competition for homes in the past couple of years has left 72% having regrets about their home purchases, according to a recent survey from Clever Real Estate. 72% is a clear majority of recent home buyers. And you can understand why. First of all, buying a home is not, or owning a home is not as easy as people think it is. Usually everything breaks as soon as you move in. It's very costly. And if you bought something at the top of the market, and considering how expensive housing has been, people probably don't have as much, disposable income to spend on upgrading their home or, remodeling it or fixing what's broken. But we should take a look at who's making up the majority of new home buyers. And unsurprisingly, it is millennials, 66%. Gen Z, ballin'. 16% of Gen Zers are ballin'. I don't know how they managed to buy homes that young, but nonetheless, I'm guessing it has to be the crypto people. I can't think of any other way. And then 18% of home buyers recently were boomers. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on and what they're regretting, because I just find the results of this poll, or the survey, I should say, really interesting. So first timers paid a median of $510,000 for a home in the 2021 to 2022 year. And that's about 13% more than the $450,000 that repeat buyers had paid, right? So the reasoning that the researchers had for the individuals having regrets does make sense. The number one reason for the buyer's remorse, 30% of respondents said they spent too much money. The second most common regret was rushing the home buying process, with 30% saying their purchase decision was rushed and 26% indicating they bought too quickly. And then finally, just one more graphic before I go to you, John, 31% of the buyers said that they paid over asking price. The median amount paid over the listing was $65,000, because there were bidding wars. There's limited inventory, people really want to buy a home, and they engage in these bidding wars, which usually result in the closing price being more than what the asking price was. So John, what do you think about all this?
I think it's a mess. Also, I mean, look, in the same way that you dove into what those polls about student loan forgiveness mean, having regrets isn't necessarily the same as if I could press a button and reverse it, I would. I mean, I think it's very reasonable to have mixed feelings about something that costs more than $500,000, I think. But a lot of people might now feel locked into it. Hopefully they're a little bit more protected from some sort of catastrophic loss of their home, as we've seen in past housing collapses. But it's complicated. And honestly, I feel bad for everyone at every step of the process. So yes, if you bought during that really hot period, then you probably paid a lot more than you might even now for the same home, because prices have gone down a little bit over the last 6 months. But the interest rate has gone up fairly significantly from that period. So you might save a little bit of money now, but you're probably gonna pay more in interest over time. Plus, if you bought then, in theory, you won't, like, as opposed to staying in a rental, we know that rental prices have gone up dramatically in a lot of markets. In theory, locking in an even inflated mortgage would at least be consistent going forward, unaffected by the massive inflation of rent. So I don't know, it's like choose your poison. Do you want to get screwed in 2020? Do you want to get screwed now? It's pretty rough either way.
No, you shared such an important perspective, because this housing market puts everyone at a disadvantage. If you're a first-time home buyer, clearly you're at a disadvantage. With right now, it's two issues happening simultaneously. The interest rates have gone up, but while in some markets the prices have maybe stagnated or gone down a little bit, overall, prices for single family homes continue to rise. It's mind blowing. It really, really is. And we'll get to why in just a moment. But you're right, there are benefits in being able to lock in a mortgage, because you're not worried about a landlord, hitting you up to tell you like your rent is gonna go up $500. There was a study just recently about how housing in New York City has hit a record $5,000 a month to rent an apartment, just a normal apartment in New York. That's the average price. Like it really is mind-blowing. So the rental market is terrible. The single family home market is terrible for people looking to buy or to be first time home buyers. And I should also note that first timers were even more screwed during the recent years, where they paid a median of $77,500 over the listing price. Yep. So it's just been disastrous for people. And the tight competition led 36% to actually make an offer on a home without even seeing it in person first. Okay. This is really important for people to understand, okay?
That's exciting, Anna. Why do you hate gambling?
Don't buy a home unless you have seen it for yourself. And it's also really important to do a thorough inspection, because even with a thorough inspection, everything will break, okay? So I can't imagine.
You're really worried about that.
No, but I am, because look, if you're overextending yourself to be able to purchase a home, like let's say everything in your savings is wiped out, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble. That's why I'm just kind of using this as an opportunity to warn people to be careful. You have to have like a rainy day fund, because everything will break. Like I remember the first year I moved in, a pipe in our common wall. I live in a condo building. Common wall burst. It's an old building, so I guess I should have expected it. Entire kitchen was flooded, mold everywhere. It was a disaster. So if I didn't plan ahead, I would have been completely screwed.
Yeah, I look, I agree. Obviously, you'd want to be able to do that. The issue is, I know I watched. I forget what they were doing, interviews with people who are moving to a new area during the pandemic and trying to buy a house, and they profiled people that put offers on dozens and dozens of places. And so in some cases, they felt like they had to put an offer immediately as soon as they could before seeing something. People just got put in such a desperate position where they were expected to waive all sorts of contingencies that you were supposed to get on inspections and appraisals and those sorts of things. I think the interviews I was seeing were, I think, in the Austin area or somewhere in Texas, but people were put in a really desperate position. And it's not just like the normal bidding wars that might have happened when the real estate was hot in previous decades. Like you could be going up against multiple people, many of whom are desperate, some of whom might be transitioning from one home to another, so they're likely to have a significant amount of money that they can parlay from one house into the second. Corporations, literally, you could be going up against like Redfin, an algorithm that's able to automatically put up whatever amount of cash it needs to. I don't know, maybe oligarchs in China and Russia. Like you're getting bought up from domestic corporations, international corporations, and speculators. It's a terrible position to be in.
And everything you just mentioned is still occurring despite the fact that interest rates have gone up. Because if you are able to purchase a home in cash, you don't care about the interest rates. And the only people who are able to purchase homes in cash are incredibly wealthy individuals, including foreign oligarchs, private equity firms. And that brings me to what we're also noticing, because the idea of increasing interest rates, which is what the Fed has done and they continue to do, was to kind of calm or cool the economy down. And it was supposed to have an impact on the housing market. It has to some extent in some markets. So I wanna just mention that as a caveat. But if you take a step back and you look broadly at what we're experiencing in home buying right now. Well, the National Association of Realtors last week announced that the US is in a housing recession in terms of declining sales and building, meaning construction is also down. However, prices continue to rise nationally as inventory remains tight. Interest rates on mortgages are also expected to continue to rise as the Fed works to curb record high inflation. But again, the prices are still going up. We're still seeing the prices of these homes shoot up despite the increasing interest rates. But it turns out that corporate home buyers carry several advantages most individuals do not, such as the ability to offer attractive all cash offers and a willingness to waive inspections and appraisals. It has helped drain the housing inventory to historic lows recently and makes it difficult for these first-time home buyers to compete. And so how bad is it? Well, this activity is still going on. The number of LLCs that own homes in New Jersey has grown from about 12,000 in 2012 to more than 72,000 in 2021, which is of course a 500% increase. And at least 1 in 4 homes or 1 in 4 home sales in 22 New Jersey communities went to LLCs since 2017, and LLCs have captured nearly 8 billion in single to 4 family houses since 2017 alone. So here's a fun visual. This is New Jersey in 2012, and it's a presentation of the number of corporate-owned homes in Newark, New Jersey in 2012 specifically. Compare that to 2021. Boom. So those are houses that are snatched up by LLCs and corporate greed. Fun.
That's fun. Yeah. And what's being done about it?
Oh, nothing. Are you kidding me? That would mean we'd have to rein in corporate greed, and this is America. We don't do that ever. So anyway, why don't we do one more story? I know we have a few more minutes before we go to break, but I wanted to talk about Trump constantly putting his foot in his mouth and not even really realizing it. So this has to do with his decision to sue the federal government over the FBI raid that occurred in Mar-a-Lago.